This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm your host, Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us, guys. It's so good to have you here. I want to say right up front, because I always forget, we do have a YouTube channel. You guys are discovering that because I've been so bad at promoting it, but there's a YouTube channel. Just search Things Police See and go there. Also, the Facebook group, join that. That's a lot of fun. That's on Facebook. Just search it. But this is episode number 73, and I'm tired, guys. I did a double yesterday. I don't know if I think people realize it, but to be a policeman or woman these days, you do have to do extra work. So I've been trying to hook up with the guest that I have today for episode 73, Marc Hildebrand. I should have asked you, Marc, before I came on how to pronounce your name appropriately, but I'm sure you can correct me. He's been 18 years LAPD sergeant, which is, I know this man has stories. Also, beyond that, he's done something really interesting where he's actually lost over 100 pounds while on the job, while improving his family life and the trajectory of his career, and just his general well-being, which is fascinating to me because I am a person who has, over the last 20 years, probably lost and gained the same 30 to 40 pounds a dozen times. I'm sure he can have some insight for that, maybe instill a little discipline in me. So without further ado, let me bring on Marc Hildebrand. Marc.
Steve.
Welcome to the show, sir. Tell me I didn't butcher your name.
You didn't. You nailed it, Steve. Yes. You nailed it.
Excellent. It's so rare for me. It's great to see you, and we've been trying to connect, and because my work schedule and your schedule, and then your side hustle. And let me tell the audience, I can tell Marc is a hustler by the way he was communicating with me. When I said, "How about this time?" He said, "Well, yeah, I have 50 minutes that day." It's like, so when someone gives you the time they have in increments of minutes, you know they're busy, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, I greatly appreciate you for accommodating me, Steve. And I love the technology you have going here. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Absolutely.
Glad to have you. And let me throw up your graphic here, because through this journey, so we're obviously going to get the stories. We love the stories, but also the journey is kind of chronicled on here. And I think you give motivation and just kind of guidance and encouragement to people through this podcast, right?
Yes.
It's LEO Family Fitness.
Correct. Yeah, those are my three pillars, and that's the three pillars of our a mastermind team that I have. And so I talk about those three things on my podcast. Of course, our career and wanting to make the biggest impact that we can there, right? But also without losing contact with our family, because nobody wants to come home with a pocket full of money to a home full of strangers, right?
Right.
And then, of course, it all is built by that fitness on the bottom, like your mental, physical, and emotional health and fitness. Will help you hold up the other pillars. So those are the three things we focus on the podcast.
Absolutely. And it's, I can say from experience, and I think everybody in law enforcement who's gained weight while in uniform will attest to, it makes your job way worse.
Oh yeah.
It creeps up on you because it's like, I remember it early on, you come out of academy, you're in shape. And then I just slowly gained weight, and it was like, you're wearing a uniform that's tailored to you. So this thing you put on, including your vest, is going to tell you every time when a millimeter has widened. I remember going on vacation to Bar Harbor one summer, and we're up there for 2 weeks, just barbecuing and drinking beer the entire time. Coming back to Cape Cod where I was working, it's 85 degrees and humid. The basement we had, the air conditioning sucked. It was dank down there. And it's hot, and I'm putting on my vest and then my pants, and and I'm just like, oh, I know what this is going to be like. And it was horrific. I don't think people who don't wear a gun belt and vest don't understand when you get fat, when you become a fatty, they call us blue bellies in Massachusetts when you get fat, and you sit down, your belt, everything pushes into your gut. Your gut pushes your mag carries and cuff case into your thighs. Then your vest pinches your fat that's sticking out the side. It's like, it's enraging, man. You just feel like you cannot wait for your shift to end.
You're right. And even like you all see the people who have the mag pouches who kind of like lean forward so much because of their belly that they're kind of permanently like that.
Yes.
And they go to reach down. They're like, oh man. Yeah. It's madness. I experienced that too. So I can feel it.
Yeah. So, right now I'm thin, Steve. For last year, I've been good. I've been for me, I was pre-diabetic for a little bit, or close. So I just dropped the sugar. I do under 100 carbs a day. I'm down to 200, which is good for me. I could be 185 probably, but 200 is not 235 where I was. And I just have felt way better. And it was a point I made when I got back into police work. I said, I know I'm going to go to the uniform store. I'm going to get measured, and I want to feel good. I want to feel comfortable. You almost feel like, I don't know, for me, when you're in law enforcement uniform and you start getting out of shape, you start to feel like a sham. To me, you just start to feel like a soup sandwich. You just show up and you're like, look, I'm here to help you.
Yep.
The sandwich falls out of your pocket.
It has a lot to do with confidence, right? That's just another show in and of itself. Having that confidence, even when you step out of the car, people know. I remember interviewing a gangster one time, and he was one that had always fought with police, but he didn't fight with me. And I remember having talking to him afterwards and going, hey man, why didn't you run? Why didn't you fight? And he said, because when you got out of the car, I knew that I was not going to win that run and I was not going to win that fight. You just had this level of confidence. So I decided not to fight you today. And it was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me because I felt better, but I didn't know that other people could feel that confidence. But it also made me think about then that must have mean that I didn't have confidence back in the day when I wasn't taking care of my health, when I wasn't taking care of my family and doing all the things that I do now. So it's confidence helps us all over, not only at work, but at home. In the bedroom with your wife, confidence helps everywhere. It's it's not, there's not one area that it doesn't get touched. The physical benefits of losing 100 pounds and feeling good is great, but there's so many other benefits that we kind of don't slow down and actually think about. Confidence is one of them.
Yeah, it feels good definitely when your wife wraps her arms around you and she goes, oh my gosh, you're so skinny. Like that. My wife has said that before, and that definitely feels good. To your point about confidence and just presence, on duty, I remember in police academy, they showed us this kind of prolific cop killer guy that had assaulted many police and he committed murders and all this other stuff. And they, I think you've probably seen it or read about the FBI did a study on why did you attack this cop? And exactly what you said, the guy was like, well, I dealt with this other guy first, and he described it. This guy was a psychopath, but he said, he's like, the way I always felt about it is there's a watering hole in the jungle, and I'm going down to get some water, and I'm like a jackal, and if I get some, sloppy ass or injured lion or somebody who's been separated from their pride or even a prey animal, no issue. I start planning in my head what I'm going to do this person. He goes, when I get a lion down there that's, full mane, has a pride, he's, big presence or he didn't say big, but, just squared away basically. Boots are looking good, pants are looking good, no gut. He goes, I really didn't screw with those guys because those are the guys that could hurt you, so, and he had killed police officers and that was his train of thought. So, that always, that didn't stop me from becoming a fatty on duty, but it was always
me neither.
That's funny. So, Marc, can you take us back to the early days and tell us the first hot call you went to on LAPD?
The first hot call. Actually, it's kind of funny. It's 18 years ago, but I actually still pretty vividly remember it. So I responded. It was my first day, and I responded to a domestic violence. It was a code 3. The neighbors had called because they heard some banging and they heard some a female scream. And so we got there, and I remember my partner that day, he was kind of nonchalant about it, because of course he did it a million times before. But I was like,
old salt.
Oh man, all of these scenarios are popping through my head. Oh man, domestics, they're the worst. I remember getting there, and I was just I was up here, and I was I was just pumped. I'm okay, what do I have to how do I?
Yeah.
And so we door knock, and the man comes to the door. And he kind of like opens it a little bit. And my partner starts talking to him. And I noticed like on his hand, it's like, it has like, it's red, like really red on his hand. And I'm like, okay, like obviously something's going on here. So he gets the guy to open the door. We step in, and my partner goes to talk to the woman who is in like the kitchen, and I'm with the possible suspect, right? Because we really don't know. And until he started to tell me like, oh, hey, nothing was happening. Nothing's been going on. We were just listening to the TV loud. And I'm like, okay, why are you all sweaty? And why is your hand like all red? Anyway,
Right.
a couple minutes later, my partner walked in and he gave me the symbol. At the time, I didn't really know what the symbol was. I'm like, okay, what does he want me to do?
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, cuff him. So I handcuffed him. And I remember looking over and seeing his wife, who was like bleeding from her eye. And I guess what had happened is like she had burned food or something like that. And he decided that he was going to hit her a few times. He had done it in the past. He had been arrested multiple times before, but she never continued with like the restraining order or anything. She didn't do anything in terms of like leave him or anything. She didn't live around family. So I really felt for her. So I arrested him, took him, went through all the booking. And I remember like going home that night and like not being able to sleep, because I was thinking about like, okay, like this situation that this lady's in, like I came there and I helped her out, but like, did I really help her out? Because is he going to get out in a couple days and come back there and like do something worse because she's not going to continue? And so like that first day, it was kind of traumatizing because I just kept thinking about it over and over. And did I do enough? And so, it wasn't like the biggest event of my career, but it was the first thing. It was my first little adrenaline dump, I guess. Sure. But then at the same time, it was that thing that like I was just thinking about over and over again. I was like, first off, I can't believe that a grown man would punch a woman and then, be totally cool about it. And, me not be able to do as much as I wanted to because she didn't want to cooperate. So, that just keeps flowing in my head. Even 18 years later, I still remember that.
Yeah, it's funny that it gets like seared into your mind. And you're right; those abuse cycles you witness early on, because you're there to help, you're there to stop it, and then like you quickly figure out like, oh, this is just for now. It's stopped, but there's no way.
Band-Aid.
Yeah, there's no way he's not coming back here. I had a similar experience. The first one I went to was a mom on daughter, like physical fight with each other, and it freaked me out because it wasn't a big deal at first. I was pumped to go, of course, for domestic. And then the daughter was so insane. So I'm doing everything for the first time, like cuffing, booking, all that stuff. And she is like giving it to me. And it's nothing worse than being new and like fumbling around, and then like the perp is just what are you retarded? Like you're an idiot, and you're like, you just want to be like, shut up.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm doing. So that, like I said, that was that one really got me jacked, and it went on for like an hour as the booking and all that went on, but I'll never forget it, and it makes me want to like turn a little red when I think about it, like, oh man. But hey, that's part of the growing process, right?
It is. You learn so much from those experiences.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, Marc, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you've dealt with?
So I just got off probation. And by the way, when you get off probation, they do this cool thing at LAPD where they put you with other people who were in your class, and like you guys are like the blind leading the blind. So I remember we responded to like it was just like a welfare check at a residence. We got there. Basically what they said is they hadn't heard from their dad in a little while. And they called and they wanted us to go over there and do a check. We get there, end up finding out that one of our partners had gone there the day before, hadn't heard anything, didn't see any outside signs that anything was wrong. So just left a business card and just kind of took off. And so my partner and I got there, we surrounded it, went around, looked to see if like there was any evidence of anything. And there was evidence of something that smelled very terrible. And I'm like, dude, we got to go in. Like, this is like the second time. They haven't seen him in like over a week. We need to figure this out. And so what we did is his garage door was one of those old school ones where you could kind of pull up on it really hard and then have somebody go inside. So my partner went inside, flipped the garage door open, and he was a hoarder. Like every space in his entire, even his hallway had like this much of a space to walk.
Yeah.
And there was like books and trash. And he also had probably, I'm not joking, probably about 30 cats.
Why?
And so there was like landmines all over the place. So we're like, okay, yeah, like what's going on with this guy? And so we were walking room to room. We didn't find anything. And then we got all the way to the end, which is hard because there's like so much stuff there. And so my partner's like, dude, I think we're good. I'm like, no, we're not good. Like, if you can't smell that, like there's something going on.
Yeah.
So I went into his bedroom again and I had to like crawl on some of the stuff. And when I did, I saw like a hand.
Oh boy.
And it didn't at the moment look like anything was attached to it. It looked like it was just the hand. And then we kind of figured it out after we got like the coroner and everybody there. His cats had ran out of food and he had died. I guess the coroner said like he had like some kind of heart attack, but he'd been in there for like a week. And so if you could put 2 and 2 together, the cats didn't have any food. So they started to, yes. And that was like probably the most bizarre experience that I had because I was like, holy cow. First off, I didn't know that cats would do that.
Yeah.
But it was, once again, another traumatizing incident where I like, you can't unsee that, right? So that one kind of pops into my mind, especially when you have 2 brand new police officers who are going in there and we had never experienced anything like that before. It was kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, that's
and disgusting at the same time.
So disgusting. Yep. Yeah, I've been to a very similar situation with the rows, like the almost like hallways made of like it was like National Geographic. He had like every single one ever.
Yes.
And there was animal urine and same scenario. But the guy was face down in the bathroom. He weighed like 400 pounds. He'd been there like 3 days. He had like 3 dogs and 5 cats. But a detective there, I was very new, had said they hadn't turned to eating him yet. And so he knew about that, I guess, or he had seen something like that. It was still disgusting. His whole, the lividity when we lie face down and we turn into like this huge black face. And the cats I was a natural resource officer at the time, so I had to help animal control capture the cats.
Oh my goodness.
It was like my worst nightmare. And it, like you said, that, that ammonia poopy smell, like in the house, that like horrible animal urination. Well, good for you, man. I can't believe you crawled over any of that. I would have been like, wah, wah.
For sure. Blood gets me, but for some reason, like that kind of, the smell doesn't get me as bad as like seeing like a gushing wound or something like that. But yeah, it was terrible. I think I had to burn that uniform.
Yeah, that's awful. I'm same with you, man. I'm a total, I get so queasy when it comes to blood. Any scene like that, I'm like, oh, make myself busy. What can I do? Let me put a beach towel on that. Because I don't know if people realize it, but they're movies have come so far that like sometimes these scenes you go to look like a movie. Like to me, my brain does that. Like all of a sudden, it's like, is this an animatronic gore puppet or is this a person? Right. Like when bones are sticking out and stuff. It's almost like. It must just be a protection for your brain, kind of pulls you out. Like, this is just a movie you're involved in. Don't worry about it, Yes. Yeah, I'm the same way. I remember I had to stand on a call for a long time once that had some gore, and I was like, I just started like, I couldn't stop. Everybody was chatting. It was decompression time. We were just waiting for cleanup, and it was like joking's going on, and I just been there too long. I started like, I can go for a walk. I can't do it.
Yep.
Marc, before I get back into the questions, can you give us some details? I really want to know about the you lost 100 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And one interesting note that I read was that it was you were struggling in your family life. It was like affecting every part of your life, it seemed like. So were you thin, then got fat, or have you always been heavier and it just got worse? You know what I mean?
Yeah, great question. So I was 267 before I got on the job. I was like you, yo-yoing forever, up and down and up and down. And I got into the academy and I think I was like 217 and I was doing it like in a very unhealthy way. And so I was just fluctuating. I'm 6 foot.
Okay.
I'm 6 foot. So I was just fluctuating up and up and up and down and up and down. And then once I got on the job, yeah, it got worse. A lot of people didn't realize that I had gotten myself up high again. But like I was giving it all to my career. I mean, I was on LAPD. I was on like this elite gang enforcement detail. I was spending all hours of the night, search warrants. Then of course in the morning being the court qualified gang expert and all that. Like I was giving everything to my career. And so that made my health slide. And then my family didn't know who I was. And I realized I was kind of letting the job do that. It wasn't the job doing that to me. It was kind of like the other way around.
You needed to set some boundaries to save your family probably.
Yep. 100%.
How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have two, a 10 and 12-year-old.
Oh, that's great. That's good. Those are good ages.
Yeah.
So did your wife let you know? Was she like, because, you know, I did midnights at one point for 5 years, and that was, and I wasn't by no way really married to the job. I would do some extra work for money, but my favorite thing was just to go on my days off and, you know, try to get on a normal schedule. But I did overnights for 5 years, and we got to one point where my wife was like, you need to get off those because we're not doing this anymore. Like you're like a space shot for the first day off, and then by the time you're normal, you're going in for a midnight again. And it was kind of slowly over 5 years driving her insane. Now when you're doing like the gang cop thing and really getting into it and like really spending time there, that's got to wear a spouse down fast.
It does. And my wife is, man, this is her greatest strength and her greatest weakness. She is so supportive. She'll support me through anything. And that's what she was doing. She wasn't really even complaining about it much. She would, you could kind of see that she was disappointed when I wasn't making like special events and stuff like that. But it kind of like took like an inner, something that happened inside of me to realize that I was kind of like letting her and letting my family down. When my son was born, because my son was born around the time that I was that all in. My health was off track. My family, like I wasn't connected with my wife as much. And he was born early. He was born at 27 weeks and he spent 73 days in the NICU because he was too small to breathe on his own. And because I hadn't made my family a priority, I hadn't made my health a priority, like I had like a nervous breakdown. Like I wasn't emotionally ready to experience that.
Sure.
And my mental fitness, my mental health was a mess. So I developed shingles. I was like, I couldn't even show up for my son like how I wanted to.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was that inner transformation of like, okay, like he didn't choose to have me be his dad. He just came into this world, but I had already let him down because I had not like thought about that. You know, I hadn't focused my attention on that. And so that was kind of like that inner switch that happened to me where it's like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to do something. And it's going to be something different than I've done before because I didn't like the way my life was turning out. Wow.
So that was the straw that broke your back, your son, and not being able to show up emotionally or maybe even physically for him because of the work.
Yep.
What did you turn to? What was the first thing you thought, let me look into this? Like, what was there a inspirational person or was there CrossFit or like, what was the thing where you're like, let me just do something and start?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love that question. And most people think it's like the straight path of like the first thing that I did that I tried worked. Well, the first thing that I did was screw it up for many, many years. But I was taking action at the same time. So I talk a lot about this in my mastermind team is like a lot of times we put so much emphasis on what we do, but in reality, what's important is that we do and that we continue to grow, we continue to become better. And if it's not working, we adjust it and we make changes. And so like, I think the first thing that I did was like, do you remember Tybo with like Billy Blanks?
Oh, hell yeah. Billy Blanks is the man.
I was like, dude, I'm just going to get these videos and I'm going to start doing it. And so it kind of inspired me to go that route. And so I started to get like different home workouts. I started to do like the Chuck Norris thing. I forget whatever that stupid little machine is that he had, but like Christy Brinkley or whatever.
Yes.
I was trying everything. I was like, okay, let me throw this on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until what you said right now where I connected with a coach who could help not only push and motivate me, but he was a few steps ahead of me. And because he was a few steps ahead of me, he could guide me through where I was going and then not allow me to get back into using my career and busy life and kids as the excuse, instead using them as the reason why I must do it.
So you personally connected with him.
I did. He works on the job still with me. And so he connected me with not only a system, but him, which was like, hey, we're going to show up. We're going to talk about it. We're going to push each other and we're going to keep growing. And at the time, it was just my health and fitness. That's all I was doing at that time. And then I realized when I succeeded with that, when I lost the weight, when I felt great, like what other areas can I do this in? And so I also connected with people to make me a better father, connected with people to make me a better husband. I connected with people. And so it was like this connection with people is what it was for me, as opposed to these are the 42 different exercises I do. And this is how I ate when it comes to my nutrition. Like that's an important piece of the puzzle, but not as important as actually showing up and actually doing it.
Yeah, that's so important, Marc, what you're saying about FaceTime and like human connection. Because as you know, as we all know, we're getting, and the pandemic hasn't helped, but we were going that way anyways. It just kind of got accelerated with the pandemic, but we're all unconnecting. Like people, I learned it when I was a background investigator for LAPD, like even in like the nice neighborhoods, neighbors don't know each other. I don't know who that person is. They live 50 feet from you. You can't tell me something about this person? No, they lived there 10 years. They grew up there. They were kids from 8 to 22. Nope. Well, I saw them a couple times. Like this weird disconnection from people. And I think when, and my good friend, one of my best buddies now, Ken Roybal, who did the podcast with me, we became good friends at Backgrounds. And, there's something about having a good, structured, moral, good example in your life that holds you accountable. Like you say you're going to do something if you have your own schedule and your own little things you're doing, your own little home, CrossFit, whatever, there's no accountability at all, and they're not involving anybody else. And there's really no inspiration. I mean, people do it. People with really strong constitutions can do it for a while, but when you it's just like running alone or running with a partner, running alone or running in the platoon at academy. Like, where did you perform better? It's that human connection is just huge. So I think that personal coach thing is like, it's bigger than people realize. It can really, and I just see it over and over again. People like talking like you are about it, and just it just leaks into all aspects of your life in a good way. You look good, you feel good, and from there, why not make everything good, right?
Yeah, and there's a huge stigma, and I think that it's starting to be broken down now, and that is like the whole idea and concept of asking for help, versus doing it yourself and doing the lone wolf thing, because before I got connected with the coach who helped me, like I was in that, hey, I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to kind of hide in the room. I don't want other people to see me. What are they going to think about me? All that kind of stuff. All those like limiting beliefs that got me to not take the kind of action that I could have. And what's easy is like talking yourself out of doing things when you're the only person who knows about it.
Absolutely.
It's like I am like a negotiator and a half with my own brain. I can convince myself that I don't want to do it. It's too expensive. I don't have enough time. I can literally do that. But the funny thing is you can convince yourself the opposite too, but you just have to shift that focus, right? And so it's so important that you don't do this by yourself, but yet we still have this fear of like talking about going to see like a police psychologist. Like I talk about that a lot because I had to go 6 times on my career. And every time that I did, I became stronger because of it. I learned so much about me. Sure. And then just like it dropped down this wall, this facade where I was like trying to pretend like I was somebody else other than Marc, and it sucks when you have to try and be inauthentic. And so I talk about that a lot because I'm like, that's like you said, we're humans. We're better in groups, right? We're better when we help support each other. Sure. And I might need something from you now, but vice versa. Like you're going to need something from me too in the future because we all have our different strengths, right? And so breaking down that barrier is something I try and do all the time because so many people are like, hey, thank you. I'll just go ahead and do this on my own. And I'm like, well, if that would have worked, it would have worked already, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny there. You reminded me of a story at Backgrounds. I wish I could remember her name. There's this super, really fit Black LAPD officer, female, that worked there, and she was very nice, very pretty, short hair. Just you could tell, just such good shape. And someone told me she even trained the chief. She was assigned to helping him. I don't know if you know who she is or not. She's been on posters. I do. Who are you talking about? They've used her before on posters, and my buddy Mike was a retired D2 for robbery or gangs. And he told me this funny story. He goes, my partner made the mistake of asking her for help. He goes, so this is like, 15 years ago. He goes, so we're, headed into the station. He's supposed to be meeting her, and he stops at McDonald's. And he'd been working with her for like a couple weeks. And he comes through the door, and she's like, locks onto him, sees the McDonald's, and she's like, oh, hell no, and starts running at him. And my buddy said his partner just booked it to the elevator and was like, this McDonald's, But that was that accountability, because she didn't screw around. She's not going to waste her time
Exactly.
giving you all her experience to have you, waddle in the back door with your McDonald's. So I thought that was funny. That was such a fun part of working with LAPD, because in backgrounds it's there's sworn people, but then there's also the civilian background investigators, which what I did, and it's under like it's so weird. It's the Bureau of Public Safety within the personnel department, and you're contracted but you work and report to LAPD. So it's a weird, convoluted, very LA like setup.
Yes.
But I got to meet so many cool people, and like I got to meet the people who, just living in the city, I'd be walking in the halls, be like, hey, why do I feel like I know that person? Oh, they're they're like an LAPD essentially model. Like they're like a good looking, like if you're a good looking Asian black guy or girl or white guy or girl, like if they have like a perfect mix of all races, all very attractive, and then they just like give them submachine guns, and they used to do that. Now they make them like playing guitars in the subway. I don't know. It's kind of the campaign has fallen far away, but I just thought that was such a cool and why not? Why wouldn't you? It's LA, it's supposed to be
right.
Hollywood and all that stuff is very prevalent there. So that was just a fond memory. But yeah, I never made the mistake of asking her to help me. Not that she would have, but I don't think I would have survived. She would have killed me. So I got a couple more questions for you about your police job, but I want to know, how long did it take to lose 100 pounds?
Okay, so this is kind of a hard question, because I gained and lost a bunch of times before I officially lost the rest of the 100. So I would say probably about a year in total, because I lost some, then I would gain a little bit, and then I lost some, and then I would gain a little bit. But if you put it all together, it was about a year.
Did you do any like low carb keto stuff?
I tried everything that you could possibly imagine. I tried keto. I tried intermittent fasting. I tried.
I've done that. I like that.
Carb stacking. I mean, I tried carb loading. I mean, I tried everything. And what's funny is like I ended up just eating normal, and that's
just
like
Whole
what
Foods
did it.
probably.
I'm like, yes. I'm like, are you serious? Like, yeah, because I would get on the diet train. Okay, what's going to be this week? All right, that didn't work. What's going to be next? And
that keto thing
just had to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had to eat foods that I enjoyed eating, and eating them in the most natural ways, and making sure that I didn't overdo it when it comes to the portions, because you can eat too much of healthy food. Like, it's possible, right?
Yeah.
And so just doing those three things, I found my path.
Who would have thought, that's so true. Like I think you have to look at those, and you can't call them diets. Like the keto thing is it's like a lifestyle, and it's way more complicated than like just eat bacon. It's, there's dirty keto, there's clean keto. There's a couple keto gurus on YouTube, and they'll tell you up front, like, this is a process of making your body fat adapted and burning fat as fuel, which takes months to get into. We're not talking like, oh, I lost this weight in 3 weeks on keto. That's water weight and maybe some fat. Like if you're doing keto, these guys have been doing it for years, and they can run, they can exercise and do all that under fat adaptation, and they look great. The commitment involved with that is insane. And the long-term research on is not there. There's short-term stuff that says like, this is doable. For me, I kind of used it for, I did it for like 7 months. So I did get some of the fat loss, but I just had that panic about pre-diabetes. Like 3 years in a row, I got blood work for my physical, and they're like, yeah, you're over 100 now, but you're only like 40. Like or I was like 39 at the time. So they're like, just, very simple. The doctor's like, stop eating sugar. Just stop. Like everything. Just stop eating sugar. Keep it low. Like, don't eat a ton of fruit. You need to, your body's out of balance. You're out of whack. So I did the keto kind of like as a measure to like reset. And then I added, and now alls I do is I keep my carb. I don't like processed sugar, bad. Breads, like stuff like that, starches, like very starchy food. And, my body tells me, like, if I eat at the point when I was bad, if I ate a potato with a steak, 2 hours later, I was shaky, like I hadn't eaten.
Yeah.
Like I felt like my blood sugar was actually going down after eating this stuff. And it was this weird out of syncness when your cells are too full of glycogen. And I went really deep into it, Mark. But so what I figured out was for me, almost medically, I need to starve my body of glucose for a while and then, but reintroduce it. So now I just keep my carbs, try to keep them in whole foods, or like if I'm going to do something like dark chocolate or something like that, and keep them around 100. And I don't get shaky anymore. My weight is stabilized. I feel good. But on the other hand, if I'm going to work in the yard all day, or if I want to do an exercise or work out, you might need some carbs,
yes.
And that's okay. But like you said, you probably just found the balance where you're like, all right, I'll just eat whole foods reasonably and move my body, move more, eat less type of deal. And you figure it out. But I feel lucky that I figured it out, because I got myself into a real pickle where I was eating what I thought I should, but feeling shaky, like physically, like I don't feel good. And it took months to figure it out. And I feel like I climbed out of that hole by the skin of my neck. Like now my blood comes back and I'm not pre-diabetic. My blood sugars are like in the 80s and 90s. And It's only because I had that doctor say that. And then I just read so much about it, and it's not like I was like so brave doing it. I was terrified. You know what I mean? I'm like, I thought I was dying, so I was willing to do something. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's almost like the intervention of God. Like you'll get a really bad scare in your life about something, but it changes you for the better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I know exactly what you mean. Like my most pivotal moments are like that, where it's like, and you can see, and I would ask you like, what you believe like what strength do you have that allowed you to do that? Because here's the thing, like a lot of people have taken that same situation and they've taken it the opposite, right? Where it's like, oh, this is my greatest failure. I'm such a terrible person, and they don't make any change. Right. But there was something inside of you that was like, this is going to be my greatest opportunity. And you kind of took it for that. And I've noticed that happened in my life several times. But I'm curious, like what you think it is that your strength is that allowed you to actually take action on it.
I think it was my family. It like you said, I really, there was a moment where my blood work was bad, and my spleen was slightly enlarged. And I was going through all these tests, and I'm like, still hadn't changed my lifestyle. I remember being in the shower, and like, this is like incredibly personal, but who cares? I was almost like in tears in the shower, just like, what am I doing? Like, I feel terrible.
Right.
I just feel bad. And then waiting for these tests to come back, and like, I would sit there super present with my kids, like just drinking in their faces and like what they say to me and how precious these moments are, with the mindset that you might be robbing yourself of the longevity, like seeing these kids, their kids. Like you are really trashing your body. So maybe you should really pay attention right now, because, you're going to shorten the time you have with these people that mean so much to you, and that really privately by myself made me weepy and just scared the hell out of me. And that is the moment that I was like, if I'm not eating sugar for a while, then I'm doing this, then I'm doing that. I'm figuring this out. And, it's when you're a 39-year-old man and you're getting weepy in the shower, it's like you get out of that shower and you're like, nope, this is not happening again.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about that, that's extremely powerful. Like you had gotten to that point because of food that you had chosen to eat.
Right.
And when you think about that, like just, how does that make sense? It kind of doesn't but we all do it, right? We all we literally have that decision on what kind of food are we going to eat. And I think what happens to a lot of us is we either get, our brain will tell us it's too confusing, it's too hard, it's too difficult, but really, is it that hard to choose this food versus this food? It's
Right.
not. We're all adults. We get to make a decision, whatever we want, right? And I think the brain does that because it doesn't want you to act. It doesn't want you to change. It wants you to stay the same, right? And so it's like that decision that you made was like, hey, like this might be hard, but in reality, I'm just going to take the steps that I need to take. I'm going to eliminate sugar. Like, how hard is that really? Like, it's our brain that gets us to thinking that it's so difficult, but really it's just not eating this little substance that we put in a lot of our food. It's like super easy, right? And it's like, but our brain tries to think us that it's trick us into thinking it's not. But when you can like understand that, like, and you understand how your thoughts work around that, you can actually take charge of them and say, wait, I'm a grown freaking adult here. I can decide if I'm going to do something or not. And I'm going to make a decision that I'm not going to do it. And willpower and self-discipline, like that's all great, but you don't even need that. All you can just say is like, hey, I've decided that I'm not going to do that anymore, right? It's like a difference between a smoker saying, I'm trying not to smoke versus I'm not a smoker.
Right.
Oh, here, do you want a cigarette? I'm not a smoker. I don't take one, right? There's a difference. There's a different energy than, oh, I'm trying to quit, right? That's a different thought process. And one will get you to not smoke and one will get you to maybe not smoke, which at some point you're going to, right?
So
that when you understand your thoughts there, it can really help take you the right direction.
It's funny. My dad is, he's a great guy and he's a good friend too. And when I was trying to quit smoking years ago, like in my 20s, he was like, cigarettes, he was like, you realize there's like a teeny little chemical reaction going on in your brain and it's forcing you to smoke these cigarettes, spend all this money and degrade your body. Just that little, you can't overcome that little chemical imbalance. And I thought about that so many times. Every time I wanted a cigarette, I was like, but it only, with smoking and with other things, it only lasts a moment.
Yep. But then it's gone.
Yeah, totally. And for me, I'm a Christian guy and prayer had a lot to do with it and thankfulness. Like I still, we go to church every Sunday and I wake up and I thank God every morning for all the things I have that I don't deserve. You know what I mean? For all these things that are so great and for the strength to do what I've done. And I think that kind of gratitude to God for me has kept the ball going. It has kept me on the level this time because I've done this thing before and it's been, the last year's been good,
Love it, man. Great job. Great taking action on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's felt good and it's got to keep it going, But I feel like now that it's been so long, that's just part of my lifestyle. Now, like when I have a bad day, it's like, oh, I had, a couple of Hershey Kisses or so, it's like, and it's such a treat, it's like, you just kind of give yourself those things like whatever. I'm not going back to the way it was. This isn't, it's like those things are treats. That's what they're for. They're like for once in a while. Don't deny yourself. You can have a treat, but I did realize once I had some cake recently, like delicious, like double chocolate German cake. And it was, my taste buds were like, bang, bang. Oh my gosh, what is this? And then like an hour later, I was like, oh man, I feel bad.
Yes.
I just
gut bomb.
My body's just rejecting it. Like, what have you done?
Yes.
No, that's really good stuff, Marc. Let me ask you here. I know you're tight for time. You got a schedule here. So let me ask you another question. Can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying moment on LAPD so far?
Most intense. Two kind of pop into mind. I'll choose this one. So I was once again driving around with that partner. We had a couple extra years on. I think it was like 6 or 7 years on. And my specialty was stolen vehicles. We would get dozens of them. And so we were driving around. One of our partners ended up putting out a broadcast that they were following a possible Code 37 vehicle, a stolen vehicle. And so we kind of catch up to him. And when we're heading in that direction, it turns into a pursuit. Like the guy decides to go through red lights and whatnot. Needless to say, he had just robbed, I think it was like a convenience store. So we're in pursuit. We're secondary. Supervisors behind us. What happened is as we were approaching a turn, I forget, I think it was on Tampa. We start to approach the turn. What I do is I see that the passenger door for the suspect's vehicle opened. And as he's going around the turn, the car's still moving. The guy jumps out and he points the gun
Ooh.
And he just starts firing, boom, boom, towards like our direction. And it was primarily in like towards the primary unit, but we were directly behind him. And I remember hearing the rounds. And that was the first time that I had actually experienced that. And if you've never experienced that, like in that moment, it was like, holy crap. And later on, I was like, dude, that was terrifying, right? But
were they were they zinging like past? You could hear the break in the air.
Yes, they were. And you could hear them ricocheting off of things. And it was crazy because like I don't even remember what happened. All I know is that I was unholstered and I was chasing him down the street, and he had ducked into like some to some back long alleyway where he just like laid there waiting for us to come and shoot us. Oh. And so we ran up, we stopped. Of course, there was not like any good cover for us to continue beyond that point. So we just held it. Airship is already there. They ended up getting K9 there, which is awesome because K9 sent him in. Boom. A couple minutes later, he was coming back out on a stretcher. He had like got his leg and everything all ripped up.
Nice.
He tried to kick the dog. Not a good idea. Try and kick a dog. Oh yeah. So we ended up getting him into custody, and I just remember that day because like the officers who were primary, they had a better position, so they actually returned fire, and I couldn't necessarily do that because they were in front of me. And I remember because we were sitting there, and it was like one of those shifts where you have to be there for 24 hours because you're waiting for FID to come out and interview you and ask all your questions. Where were you? Where'd you see your partner? All this kind of stuff. And I just remember going through it in my head where like, you know, you have this thing that happened where it kind of felt like a movie, like you said, in the moment. It's like, oh, I'm just watching a movie, but I'm like, no, really, they were trying to kill us. Damn. It's different. Okay. And he doesn't know me. He doesn't know my family. And I'm like, wow, like that was intense. And I think just like the other one, me overthinking it and thinking about it over and over and over again. And at that time, I wasn't smart enough to go seek some help for that.
Right.
Like that actually was worse than the actual incident, you know, because you start to think about your family and you start to think about all this stuff and you're like, wait, I'm getting paid to do this. Yeah, it was crazy. So I would say that was like the one that kind of pops into my mind every time somebody asks me that question, because it kind of like made me realize that I'm mortal, even though like I didn't get shot or anything like that. But just that experience just reminded me like, hey, yeah, like some people don't like you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just something I think about a lot.
I bet. I mean, it's got to be hard too. I've never been on a call that intense where someone shot at me or I was near gunfire like that. It must be hard to the next few shifts, like doing a vehicle stop or like rapping on a door. Like I would just probably thinking like, you know, bullets could fly through this door or this guy could try to shoot me in the vehicle stop. Like, it's just such a stark and horrible reminder. People willing to do violence on you. And it's really, like you said there, that's a good point. It's really hard not to take it personally.
Yes.
Because they are discounting a human as basically garbage. I'm just going to kill this guy because they're chasing me. Not thinking about your family and how that would affect probably hundreds of people, you know, that you know. It's really kind of a spooky and awful feeling to think that, oh yeah, this is LA. Like there's people who will try to snatch my life away, not even think about, and then try to get away. They, you know, not even think twice.
And man, you brought up a couple different things. I think one of the things that I did to myself that later that night, and then also several weeks after that, is like I was Monday morning quarterbacking what I had done in terms of like, how could I put myself in a better situation? And did I help the officers in front of me enough? Like, what could I have done differently? Because, and I was just getting down on myself because you play these scenarios in your brain of like, okay, well, what would have happened if I had done this instead of that? And like, there was a set of officers who were in front of me. And of course, they were the brunt of the fire, right? Did I do anything that could have helped them out more, you know?
Sure.
And so I was like literally second guessing myself. Like, did I do the right thing? Did I help support them? Did I help support my partner? Because I don't even remember I had a partner at that time.
Oh, sure.
All I remember is like, I am prone down on the ground afterwards, making sure that I watch this garage door where the suspect who just shot at me is probably going to come out with a gun and I'm going to have to shoot him. And it was like, I don't remember all of those other things, but I'm like, well, does that make me a bad person? Because I don't even remember. I wasn't like, where's my partner? Is he okay? Like, I don't know. I was just, so it was like all of this second guessing that I was doing that that really was hurting me, because we don't like to Monday morning quarterback other people, right? But for some reason we like to do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
and that was a big eye-opening experience for me. Later down the line, I realized that I had done that and actually had created more trauma in myself by doing that, right? Those things happened. It's just that there's nothing that I can do or think about it that's going to make it any better. Yeah, could I do stuff different in the future? Yeah, but I can't go back in the past, right? So I was kind of using that against me. But that's just another thing of just our thoughts can like literally control like everything, how we respond to incidents like that in the future. And like you said, you go to the next traffic stop that I was on, dude, I was like, hand was like right here. Yeah. I was like, oh, sure. It just got out of control, my thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can live in those thoughts. Even like, I mean, never mind a traumatic scenario where you're literally fighting all your human nature, which is telling you protect yourself, like withdraw bullets, but you're still going, now you're proned out, you're still there, you're fighting all your instincts. This is going to sound silly in comparison, but just how powerful thoughts are. I can be driving if I'm kind of tired, just out of it in a bad way. You just kind of feel, bleh. And I'll start with a crazy fantasy about one of my kids being injured. Like with something like we have a tractor and we have some other stuff, and did I lock the gun safe? And it will be like I'm living this tragedy that isn't even close to happening. And I literally drive and go, stop it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
So,
you can imagine any kind of traumatic stuff I've been to, I feel the same way. I always, anything gory or upsetting or having to do with human suffering, I always wake up the next morning, and of course it gets better, but you wake up the next morning, it's the first thing I think of. It's just like, that thing or that face or that contorted body or whatever it is. It kind of just like, I think it starts, I'm better at talking about this stuff now, and I'm not, especially with other police officers, and you kind of, it's hard with, and I've spoken to a mental health person before, and it's cliche to say, but literally the moment they tell you like, ooh, oh yeah, that's totally, your reaction was totally appropriate, you immediately feel better. Like you're like, okay, way thank you. Because they are like, dude, that's trauma. That's screwed up. People aren't supposed to see that. Like, especially guys who work in cities like you, who see it over and over and over. They say like the average person will see like most of the bodies they see will be, people don't even die at home anymore. They'll see a body all cleaned up in a coffin a couple times in their life, or 4 or 5 times. People aren't seeing the stuff they used to see, and then you get into a job like LAPD, and it's like, you can be on a conveyor belt of trauma. So it's always amazing to me. Like when I was there, I had I worked in a small police department in Mass. Now I work in even a smaller PD. I got to tell you, I love it. It's like country policing. There's all these towns work together. It's not, we're on the same dispatch board, but it could be 15 towns on there, 20 different cops, 15 different towns. It's really cool. And you get a very good sense that you're a community caretaker. Like people wave, you literally go into people's homes to help them. Once in a while, you'll get the bad guy from one of the cities around, like bona fide bad guy, but it's not regular. The gangsters don't come in often. You do see him, and when you do see him, it's kind of a pain in the neck because usually you're alone and it's nighttime. And your backup's a half an hour away, and you're like, well, this sucks. But but that's few and far between. So when I was at LA, and they were like, they would tease me and be like, hey, I'm pretty sure you can get a post waiver and possibly get on the job here. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Why don't you look into that for me? No, thank you. I'm too aware of what you guys go through, and God bless you, man. That is a difficult job, and thank God people like you are willing to do it, because we need it. Who's gonna do it? You know what I mean? We need you guys so bad, and it's just so I'm not going to get into it, but the propagandized nature of media and how they play you guys is just, it's a crime. Because I got to know so many cops anyways, but I got to know so many LA guys, and just great coppers, and squared away and well-trained, and go to community meetings, do outreach in South Central. Like, they're doing all these things to try to make things better. So my hat's off to you, man. I really appreciate your service.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
We got a couple minutes here, I think. Is that all right? One more question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
This question is super important to me because it's important to the listeners. They want to know any advice you would give to new officers, either people in academy or looking to get hired. Any advice you could give them?
Oof. It's a loaded one.
Besides, don't do it.
No, I was going to say like a little off course here, but so I get a lot of people who reach out to me who are about to get on the department or on a department, and they ask me like, "Hey, should I do it?" And here's what I have to say: like, if people are willing to sign up and join now, like, they have the greatest opportunity ever, right? It's not just random people who are like, should I work over here or should I become a police officer? No, these are people who are like, my whole life was dedicated to growing up and putting myself into this police career. And if you're like that and you're like, hey, like, I'm asking you, is this something I should do? My answer is like always yes, because you have the greatest opportunity to like lead from the front right now when, and see what most people think is most people think that people hate us, and they don't. It's just like the small percentage that scream louder, right? But what I found is like right now is a great opportunity to get in there. And if you're willing to do that, then obviously like this is something that you should 100% do. I remember like maybe 10 years ago, like somebody was like, yeah, I decided I was going to either work at Sears or be a police officer. I decided to become a police officer because of the money. And I'm like, okay, like they did that. But like right now you have people who are really wanting to become police officers. Those are the ones who are stepping forward. So, so if I had a question, I had something some piece of advice, I would say that do not allow this job or this career to like become an excuse. So do not allow this job to become an excuse, meaning like this job is awesome. Like this career, the ability that you have to change people's lives and impact them, but you cannot use it as an excuse to lose track of what's really important in your life. You will not be able to show up as the officer that you want to, as the person that you want to, if you let the other areas of your life fall because of this career. Like I can say that now because I screwed it up for like so long, and screwing things up is a great teacher, but guess what else is? Seeing other people screw it up and you not having to screw it up on your own.
Absolutely.
So if there was one piece of advice, I would figure out a way of owning it all. Like, yeah, you can't be everywhere at the same time, right? But when you're at work, own it. When you're at home, own it. When you're thinking about your health and fitness, own it. And you can 100% do that. And if anybody tells you that it's not true, you're hanging out with the wrong people. You start hanging out with people who are owning all three, because I can tell you I have a mastermind team full of police officers, firefighters, EMTs, people who work crazy careers and multiple jobs, and they are still making it a priority. And if you're not, or you're hanging out with other people who aren't, then of course it's going to feel like it's not possible for you. But do not let this job become an excuse to actually take you off course from the things that are most important to you.
Awesome advice, Marc. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast, brother.
Okay, of course, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while, Steve.
It's really great. Do you have a minute to hang on? I know you have another appointment. I might have kept you too long. Go for it. Okay, I'm going to close out the podcast. Hey guys, that was episode number 73 with Marc Hildebrand. What a great episode. Man, he had some great words of wisdom. So appreciate him coming on. LEO Family Fitness Podcast. You can see it over here. Things were reversed right here. Go check him out. Listen to his, it's a great podcast. Be inspired, be motivated. Look at this guy. He's jacked now. Used to be a big fatty, 100 pounds heavier than he is now. Now he's killing it. He's a sergeant for LAPD. This is the kind of guy you want to take advice from. So I would go check him out. Fantastic content there. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for rating and reviewing. So appreciate that. If you could review, I always ask, if you could review more, that would be good. The only reason I say that is the way I get guests like Marc and Donnie Brasco and Joe Kenda and people that got stuff going on that have so much to offer. Big part of it is the rating and reviews, believe it or not. When people have people working for them, when they have an agent or a company or publishers, they search iTunes, they look for like-minded podcasters, they look for LEO content, and the ratings and reviews are part of what make people reach out to me. So like after this fantastic podcast, I actually have another great one lined up with a really big personality, LEO personality that I'm excited to do. And I only got these because of the ratings and reviews. So the podcast has done awesome. I mean, I just looked at the numbers, and since we started back up a year ago, there's over 450,000 unique listens to the podcast, which is I'm so grateful for. There's also only 450 reviews. So I know how it is. I'm a big podcast consumer. It takes me a while sometimes to leave a review because it just does. I'm just like everybody else. I'm just consuming this content. It's great. It's free. We love it. But if you really do love the content and you appreciate the quality of guests I've been getting, it's only because the show has been getting noticed, and you guys are part of that. So beyond donating or supporting the show monthly, which is also great, just rating and reviewing can help podcasters so much. So if you could do that for me, if you could do that for Marc, that would be fantastic. Roll call really quick here. Monthly subscribers, supporters, appreciate you guys so much. Jacob Ruth, Amanda Powell, Carmen East, Rich Emery, William James Long from William James Long Investigations, Sasha Varanoff, Samantha Harper, Gary Steiner, the great Gary Steiner, returning soon, by the way, Richard Wilson, Scott O'Donnell, David Diaz, Timothy Wright. Thank you all so much. Truly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time.